Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Able Voices podcast. I'm Dr. Rhoda Bernard, founding managing director of the Berklee Institute for Accessible Arts Education and the assistant chair of the music education department at Berklee College of Music, and I am proud to present this podcast featuring disabled artists and arts educators. We are inviting artists with disabilities to be guest hosts for the Able Voices podcast. Today, you'll meet our next guest host, Rivky Grossman. Rivky is an NYC-based singer-songwriter, recipient of the New York Arts Grant, has been nominated by the IMEA Awards, and has been selected for the New York Musical Theater's top female finalists in 2022. Her song, Hear Me Honey, was produced by Grammy-winning Amy Lee of Evanescence. Rivky's music has appeared on PBS's Mysteries of Mental Illness. Her career jump-started composing for Off-Broadway, meeting her friend and cellist Brian Sanders, releasing their first album, inviting them to the Kennedy Center, and stages featuring Suzanne Vega. Other projects include co-creating a musical currently in development with playwright Vincent Grappelli. Rivky currently hosts Melody Left Behind, celebrating performers living with schizophrenia, psychosis, autism, and those who just experience the stage a little differently, pushing the boundary to welcome a more neurodiverse inclusion on mainstream music stages, which often don't exist for every unique artist. Welcome, Rivky. We are delighted to have you as the next guest host of the Able Voices podcast.
Well, thank you so much. So glad to be here. So appreciate connecting.
Me too. I'd like to start off by asking us to tell us your story as an artist. How did you get your start as an artist, and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so I kind of like to say sometimes a series of unfortunate events, and of course fortunate events, but sometimes I think perhaps especially as artists like to say, the darker places bring you to the light. And so I guess in some ways I probably got my start like in a psychiatric facility where there was a piano. And I was for many, many years super mute, had a really hard time engaging verbally and really sharing much of anything. And so it happened to be at a place where there was another inpatient who happened to be a Broadway actor in his 40s who played the piano, and he was like, "Oh, and you'll be the next Nora Jones." And of course I laughed it off. And so that was just one small series of, sort of like down in the dumps space, but also a place that really gave me some inspiration meeting other people along the way. And yeah, I really started off painting more than I did singing, because it was just an easier creative outlet, and I was grateful to have access to it from a young age. And so it was really through painting that led me to, I guess, have my voice, really. And then through that, it kind of gave me the confidence to connect more. Of course, it's a longer story, but, and many other resources along the way and tools that taught me, how to engage socially better, which led me into the music and theater world. So that's probably the short end of the story. Yeah.
And you've had incredible honors and have done an amazing amount. So you got us to sort of how you got to music, but I want to know like how you got to do all these really cool things you're doing.
Yeah, so it started, well, one platform was the Off-Broadway stage. I had an opportunity to write and perform a song called Beneath the Greenless Garden, which was really the first song I wrote. And so that's where I met Brian Sanders, who played the cello, and the producer named Analia Gilbertson, who was actually doing pieces for underserved folks at the time, right? Which was like kind of up my alley of like, oh, she was just seeking underserved artists who needed their voices to be heard. And so yeah, it was really just a wonderful connection. And again, just having the ability to sit on stage and really get the support that I needed as well at the time, to be able to sit for the first time and perform on such a scale for me. And so I think that was probably the kind of, jumpstart.
I love that. It's the opportunity led you to meet people, led you to more opportunities.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing.
Right, it really is about networking and yeah, like social engagement I think is key, which is also pretty difficult for those who are, say, on the autistic spectrum and
Absolutely.
have processing differences. So I felt very lucky in that way.
Absolutely. You just gave the segue to the next question,
Yeah.
which was to tell us your experiences as a person with a disability.
Yeah, in terms of how I navigate in the art world or just generally how it manifests or both. Yeah, it's been pretty difficult navigating I mean, I'd say like, the world generally. I think over the years, with experience and learning who I am has helped me, but there haven't really been very many tools, especially like in school or yeah, just socially engaging. I often had a hard time in groups, just communicating or conveying a message. And so that often led me to isolate or to just really not be able to share my gifts or really share my ideas out loud. And so that was pretty hard, of course. And then I had some, mental health resources and teachers along the way that helped me to, utilize my tools and channel my disability through arts. And I think maybe understanding the ways in which I could combine my art, my music, and conveying my message of my own personal story, kind of like woven in all together, I guess through the years helped me to realize that I can navigate and find my own groove, which is still a hurdle. But, I think part of it is also, I guess, talking vulnerably about the way in which I process, especially in the music industry. There are some people that can relate. And so in those ways, it's really beautiful to know that I wasn't alone, or I'm not alone in, searching for the right groove, both in the musical world and even in my normal day-to-day world, that it's okay to, speak differently or, need more time and space to navigate with whatever it is, So yeah, hope I communicated that well, and you can ask a question again to
Yes,
help me,
you
to steer me back. Yeah.
absolutely. You communicated it really well. There's a phrase you used, searching for my own groove,
Mm.
that I think has many levels of meaning. Do you want to elaborate on that phrase?
Yeah, so I think maybe part of it might be that for many years and still, like, I may have been afraid to be as vulnerable about my struggles. And because of that, I think it may have exacerbated even my regular level of functioning, to the point of like, I don't know, say not like performing in the way that I need to. And so, like, for example, I would perform a song on stage and I really just wanted to take a break or have somebody else come up on stage with me, right? But like a lot of these mainstream stages will invite like and spotlight an artist, and you'll have to just do like a 30-minute set. And I'm like, no, but like, can't we just find like a little bit more, easier routes like built into the model so that I don't have to be doing that? Can't I find my groove in this way? And so I guess maybe that's one example, but searching for my groove can really mean so many other parts of my journey, but that's just one small example of, I guess, the musical groove of, yeah,
Totally.
accessing it
And I
in
was
the way that's
taking it
comfortable. So, yeah.
and I was taking it that broad way. It's a musical groove, but it's also a personal groove. So
Yeah, yeah,
thank you for that.
yeah.
So I know you have an excerpt of some music to share with us. Can you just tell us a little bit about what we're about to hear?
Oh, well, there are two songs that stand out to mind, and I mean, one often people like to listen to is "Hear Me, Mr. Honey," which was the one produced by Amy Lee from Evanescence, which was a really fun opportunity. But then I have a later one that I feel like currently speaks to me more, which is called "Hypnotized by Youth," and I feel like maybe that one, maybe start with that one,
Sure, let's
since
do that
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, kind of what the title conveys is that I find that often people in our culture have a tendency to just want to stay young, be young, whether it's the work field, if you're starting out late, you're kind of considered a has-been, and especially in the music world, I found that I started pretty late in life generally, because I struggled with a lot of hurdles and disability and processing the world, and so it took me so long, and I thought, oh no, but I feel like a teenager right now, and I'm like, so over, quote unquote, over the hill. And so it's kind of like a sarcastic, witty way in which I play the song. Yeah, so just like let's stay young forever and be hypnotized by it because we love it so much and great glory to it. But not really.
Love that. So
Yeah.
let's take a listen.
Ah, yes, I'm counting up the days that all have gone. Ah, and everything and everyone I know is old, but old is bolder, but old is nullified. No walking came to ease my pain upon these stairs, to get up on that funky stage and play the music today. I didn't start the game when I was young. Ooh, and everything and everyone was fun. I didn't start the game when I was young.
Thank you so much for sharing that music with us. I still have a couple more questions for you. I know that our listeners are going to be interested in your arts education, especially you were a painter, obviously you're a musician and a songwriter. Um, can you talk a little bit about how you learned how to do all this stuff?
Yeah. I kind of wish that I had access to academic and trained learning, especially as a child. I didn't I didn't go to school, but I self-trained and taught myself and realized that I could play the piano and compose from a very young age, and then had many years of, not playing music at all. And then the funny thing was, only after I had met, people in the industry and performed a little bit, and then, even co-created a musical that was in development with a playwright named Jack Feldstein, and then like the social networking and meeting people. Like I finally realized that, oh, maybe I could call myself a profession, right? Like I feel like there's always that what I don't know, I always forget the word, imposter syndrome. And
Sure.
of course I feel like I still struggle, and especially since I've been out of the scene for a while now. But yeah. Oh, can you steer me back to the question? Oh, my arts education?
How you learned
Okay.
how to do this stuff.
Yeah, so so I didn't study in any school. I except so oh right, after I co-created that musical, I thought, oh, maybe I should learn how to read notes. I don't know how to read any notes. I don't know anything academically. Oh, let's try Juilliard. I mean, I'm in New York City. So they had this auditioning for the evening classes, and I was like, who am I kidding? Like, this is ridiculous. I'm gonna go there. And I just decided to hop on it. I'm like, just do it, do it. And so I decided to go to two auditions, one for vocal training and one for beginners 101 on piano notes. And I got accepted, and it was a very, very interesting experience since I had never gone the route of academics. And I will say that it was interesting. I don't know how much I gained because I was reminded that there wasn't enough accessibility even at Juilliard, and that surprised me. because I thought, oh, fast forward years later, like, oh, maybe they would understand different kinds of approaches and modalities, like while I wasn't sitting in a classroom. And I thought maybe with all of my years of experience and better coping tools that I would be able to navigate a little bit better. And maybe I did, but I still found myself requesting the teacher not call on me in class in the way that he did. And then I felt awkward about it, but I'm really grateful that I had tapped into, some training and beats and meter and stuff like that. So that was cool.
That's
Yeah.
a really interesting journey. What I love that you said was you were already doing it. And then it was like a question of, wait a minute, I can call myself this, like an identity
Right.
thing, right? That somehow that word or these words, musician, artist, whatever, are reserved for other people, but yet
Yes,
you are doing
yes.
it and you kind of backed into it. Really interesting. Really
Yeah.
interesting. Next question. What advice would you give to an artist with a disability?
Oh gosh. Oh, so many different things, but like to keep it short, I'd say so I'm trying to imagine, still my current struggle is, this idea of almost, again, like maybe coming back to the point of searching for my groove, I think probably can apply here as well, in that it's so important to feel included as a disabled artist, even as any artist who doesn't quite navigate in the same way as many mainstream artists. I would say to them that if there isn't an outlet for you to find a way in which you are processing differently, then create it yourself. Like, to never ever give up on saying, like, this is so difficult and I don't think there's a place for me right now. So, like, maybe I should try something else. And I still struggle with those questions now. Like every other day, I'm like, oh, maybe they're right. Like maybe that there was some Grammy nominated artist that I had connected with who said, well, yeah, Rivky, I have lots of autistic friends who just don't go on tour or stage because it isn't their thing. So maybe you can find yours. And that sometimes is difficult to hear because wait a second, like, are they right? Or is there really room for change, for more inclusion for those of us that are still trying to brainstorm together? So I would say to you, don't give up, find your groove, and, and keep on going. Just keep on, and find groups of people that might be like you that also want to change things up. And so, just keep on finding ways to feel included. I feel like that was my life of exclusion and finding inclusion, however that manifests. And if they don't listen, just find other people. Just keep going and finding them. It's an exhausting hurdle. It can be tiring, but just keep going.
I really
And
appreciate
short.
that advice. I really appreciate that advice because don't settle for what is. Make what needs to be. That's what you're saying. And I think that's
Absolutely. Yes.
certainly a
Yes.
huge responsibility. And
It's so huge.
and I hear you, but it's exhausting.
Oh,
And
yeah.
is it fair? Completely not. Completely not. Is it how the world, quote unquote, should be? Absolutely not. But I think it's good advice given the constraints that there are out there. I think that's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Small changes. And, I will say I have found ways where, like, maybe mainstream venues didn't quite listen to my idea of, say, like, so the project I had started was Melody Left Behind, celebrating underserved uh, performers living with schizophrenia, autism, and those who process the stage and the world, right, a little differently. And so, say, for example, I tried co-hosting a project at Birdland Jazz Club, and I felt very lucky. For those who know Birdland Jazz Club, it's a wonderful, wonderful stage, and I became very well connected with one of the hosts there. But there was a little bit of some hesitancy with some of my quote unquote neurodiverse ideas to bring to a mainstream stage. And they were like, well, our artist's gonna like act out, or like, what is it? We can't have the audience run it. And so there was this, like they were trying to be nice and listen. But then at the end of the day, I said, you know what? Let's just bring the co-host to my space where they can be on our turf. And so part of the idea was like, oh, let me go and perform at an underserved mental health clubhouse by bringing say, Susie Mosher from Birdland Jazz Club into that space instead. And so, I guess that's a way of just, right, like finding the group of, if they're not going to fully listen, so we'll bring them here to our audience first, and let's see if we can somehow continue bridging those two communities together by bringing it back out. And so it's kind of, anyway, back and forth, left and right, up and down, and you know how it goes, I imagine, in your position. So
absolutely. But you
Yeah.
say it better than I ever could. Last question for you. Our listeners would love to hear about what you're working on today. So what current projects are going these days?
Oh, that is a very good question. I will say that you are the first quote unquote project in terms of somebody emailing me from, entertainment and music and disability. I have been sick for about 2 years, and I have been in and out of hospitals and on bed rest. So I really hope that this last post-op, I've had some post-op complications. And so this is my recovery time, and kind of almost half sharing from my bed, this beautiful interview. And so I feel like this is the light. And on that note, I would love to continue figuring out how to, find new co-hosts for Melody Left Behind project that I had started initially, as well as, interviewing. The thing is, I was also hoping to interview other artists and actually share it along the same lines of, these podcasts, and sort of channeling it onto, say, WNYC, or right, like to kind of continue the momentum and similar work that you're doing. And it just makes me so happy to receive your email, just kind of like in perfect timing, in alignment with the project that I'm doing. So that's pretty much where I'm at. If I'm strong enough, I might perform in September for a disability advocacy event, but that's about it.
Hope you are, and I really hope your recovery is a smoother one, because this sounds like an awfully long ordeal. And I'm excited that we have parallel tracks and missions, and I look forward to continuing to support your work and to the upcoming episodes of this podcast that you will be the guest host for.
Sounds so exciting. Looking forward to it.
I want to thank you for spending this time with me today. Such a pleasure to talk to you. I love the way you describe your experience and your art. And folks, the little bit of music that you heard is just the beginning. There's a lot online. I spent a wonderful morning just getting a little bit of it today. So I recommend to all of you to check out Rivky and the wonderful work that you can find online. Thank you so much for this time, Rivky.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me. Until soon again.
Absolutely. Able Voices is a production of the Berklee Institute for Accessible Arts Education, led by me, Dr. Rhoda Bernard, the founding managing director. It is produced by Daniel Martinez del Campo. The intro music is by Kai Levin, and our closing song is by Sebastian Batista. Kai and Sebastian are students in the arts education programs at the Berklee Institute for Accessible Arts Education. If you would like to learn more about our work, find us online at berklee.edu/BIAAE, or email us at BIAAE@Berklee, that's LEE.edu.